As people went about their normal lives, one day planes appeared in the sky dispersing a black smoke that killed anyone exposed to it. Only those naturally resistant survived the exposure. They were left to cling to the remnants of the past or adapt to the new reality. With the government gone, gangs multiplied rapidly in every state, dividing territories and killing bystanders. One of these groups donned animal heads and called themselves players, alongside others known as the cherries, plowers, killers, and many more. One day, Mark West agrees to take his wife to her parents' house in Milwaukee in hopes of saving their crumbling marriage. His friend advises him to take a better car, but Mark loves his car too much and doesn't want to abandon it. Almost immediately, the thing breaks down. The pair find an abandoned auto repair shop, and whilst Mark fixes the problem, Nina looks at old photos and listens to the radio. At that moment, the doors open and several armed men enter. Fortunately, the pair of them are in a separate room. Just as Mark asks his wife to step on the gas, another car crashes through the wall, and out of the vehicle, rival gang members burst out and crush the bandits. Mark's car starts just in the nick of time, barely allowing them to escape the situation. The radio host reminds them of the need to find shelter for the night since gangs are roaming everywhere. So Mark turns towards what appears to be an abandoned house. As the couple explores the premise, Nina gathers anything that might be useful, and Mark discovers mutilated bodies in the bedroom. Nina tries to radio her parents while Mark carries the bodies outside and sets them on fire, just before resting for the night in the guest bedroom. Mark plans their journey through areas free from murderous gangs while Nina recalls how her husband previously tried to ask her father for his special collector's pistol and hopes that if they make it successfully, he will still give it to Mark. Nina blows out a candle, unaware that they are being watched by a man who was captured by the executioners gang the next morning and under torture. Reveals the location of the woman. After disposing of him, the gang heads to the house where Nina and Mark are resting. Mark goes through his usual routine when suddenly he hears the sound of engines nearby. He hides his wife in the attic, then heads elsewhere by himself. One of the gang members goes upstairs and Nina puts on headphones to play some music to drown out the footsteps of the killer. The subtle noise of music alerts him, and so he turns his back to the door to the room, costing him his life as Mark kills him with a single swift blow to the head. The thud of a body alarms the other killer. A fight ensues, with Mark managing to strike the bandit in the eye with a rusty screwdriver, leaving the man completely motionless. Narrowly escaping their demise, the couple drives off unaware of a prying set of eyes. Continuing on the road, they stop at a supermarket to stock up on any available supplies. Suddenly, a masked man appears in front of them and orders Mark to drop his gun. He then removes his mask and extends his hand for a handshake. Mark doesn't trust him, but the stranger hands back Mark's gun, prompting a temporary truce for now. Nathan is relieved to meet non-gang members, and at that same moment, the sound of engines can be heard, and the three of them take cover immediately. A group of bandits enters the store. They start by threatening to kill everyone or enslave them for some extra bucks. Nathan is completely unfazed and shows the couple a photo of his wife and invites them for dinner at his place. Suddenly, a machine gun opens fire, killing all the bandits. Nathan's son, Steve, emerges from hiding. Quite persistent, Nathan insists that the couple join his family for dinner. The road ahead is long, and they haven't seen normal people in a while, so he would be happy to treat them to food and wine. They agree. Nathan attaches the family's car to a trailer and tells them to sit in his pickup, explaining that it's for safety. Along the way, they are stopped by members of the Plowers gang. They exchange pleasantries, and the gang's leader sees Nina, suggesting to Nathan that he sell her to him. Nathan laughs it off, but the criminal boasts about capturing a girl who is sitting in his truck, who he named Betsy. Nina and Mark sense tension between the two parties, but Steve reassures them that the Plowers gang is cowardly and won't go against his father. Fortunately, he's right, and the gang clear the road. The four of them continue their journey, unaware that the guy who Mark stabbed with the rusty screwdriver is trailing them. Inside Nate's house, he questions Mark about the purpose of their journey and advises Nina to open her eyes. If her parents aren't responding, they'd most likely passed away. Nathan's wife invites everyone to the table. They all enjoy a moment of peace and delicious food, and when the family's favorite song comes on the radio, the couple dances, bringing smiles to everyone's faces. Steve talks about the dangers they encountered, but Nina is unable to stomach hearing about violence, so she asks Nathan's daughter to show her toys. Teresa joins them, and the women discuss family matters. As the men clean up, Mark compliments his wife's cooking, and the man confesses that they just ate human flesh. Mark feels sick, but Nathan gives a speech about how only the ruthless have survived. He gives him the choice that either he and Nina stay with them or he'll let them become food. Simultaneously, the girls arrive sensing the tension in the air, but a bandit enters through the back door holding Bella hostage. He's willing to release the girl in exchange for Mark and Nina. Nathan agrees, so the man lets the girl go and aims at Mark. Little does he know, Steve had been stealthily approaching him from behind, and at that moment, he slices his Achilles tendon. Before he fell, he managed to pull the trigger and the shot hit Teresa. With chaos as their diversion, Mark and Nina make a run for it, stealing Nathan's pickup and drive away as gunshots persist in the background. Driving down the road, Nina admits that she can no longer take part in this sick survival game. As they continue arguing, ahead of them lies an ambush set by the dead player's gang. One of them takes aim and a shot travels straight through Nina's shoulder. Fortunately, Mark quickly turns around saving them. Meanwhile, Nathan radios the leader of the Plowers informing him that his wife and daughter are dead and gives them permission to kidnap the blonde. A happy bandit heads somewhere when suddenly he receives a blow to the head from Betsy. Now armed, she proceeds to release the captive women, saying she belongs to the Cherry Gang, then drives the gang leader's car away from the camp. Mark finds a small house in the wilderness, tends to Nina's wound and puts her to bed. He then goes out and searches for food. Nina wakes up and discovers notes from her husband all around helping her navigate the house. She gets stressed and after looking around, starts packing a suitcase, intending to leave alone. When Mark enters a nearby room, silence prevails everywhere, so he goes upstairs and finds Nathan and Steve tied up with bags over their heads. But when he questions how they got there, a very colorful character enters the room suggesting they have some fun because after all, showtime is his life. Meanwhile, Betsy drives down the road listening to the screams of the bandit she locked in the trunk. So suddenly she notices Nina behind some bushes and goes after her. While the bandit, who introduces himself as William Cunningham, tries to find out why Nathan and Steve were tailing Mark. Mark recognizes the quotes William is using and William is pleased with his erudition. He then introduces his buddy Big Guy and offers to have a fight with him, promising to let Mark go if he wins. During this time, Nina stumbles upon a box of records, and on one of the envelopes there's a note asking her to give her husband another chance. She finds some alcohol, plays music, and under Betsy's watchful eye, loses herself in the music while her husband fights the brute. Mark takes a beating until his opponent throws him right at William, and Mark ends up with William's gun, which he promptly fires, ending the showman's life. Betsy makes a decision and kills the bandit in the trunk just as Mark bids farewell to Nathan, Steve, and Big Guy. Mark returns to the house where he left Nina and shoots with the rifle found in the yard. For the first time, Nina shows an interest in firearms and Mark teaches her how to shoot, which she turns out to be surprisingly good at. She leads her husband to the garage where Betsy enters the house and finds a ring that Nina had taken off when contemplating running away from her husband. And at that moment, she shows her husband a card, just like his, and upon learning that he wasn't very popular with girls, and thus didn't experience sensations familiar to many American guys, she suggests rectifying that in the car. The process is interrupted by the animal masked bandits, who capture the couple and take them to their base. There they are brought into a room and seated at a table with 2 sticks attached to it, each with a gun affixed. Their hands are fastened to the gun handles, and they are offered to play a game. 1 bullet in the chambers, and if they're lucky and don't shoot each other for 6 rounds, the couple will be set free. Nina then asks to add more bullets but reduce the number of rounds, which the bandits agree to. The couple begins the game, and in the second round Mark is shot in the shoulder. The crowd rejoices, and the 2 ladies start squabbling, which helps Nina free her hand. She grabs the judge's gun, shoots him and fires at the sticks holding the pistols. Then she positions her shoulder under Mark's semi-conscious body and makes her way to the door. She is intercepted by the brothel's leader, but under the barrel of the gun she has no choice but to let the family go since people with weapons are not allowed in the room according to their rules. The couple gets into a car and drives away while the gang arms itself and starts chasing them, losing a couple sentries to Betsy's gunfire. Nina presses the gas pedal and finally arrives in Milwaukee, where she learns that her parents have passed away. Neighbors hand her a letter addressed to their daughter in which her mother asks Nina not to abandon her husband. Later, neighbors show her how they have fortified their defense: barricades made of cars on the roads, a constant lookout on the roof, and a tripwire stretched across the street that can be activated with a winch. If someone drives over the tripwire, it triggers an explosion sufficient to demolish a house. At this point, the town is greeted by a longtime friend of her father, Phil, while Betsy infiltrates one of the houses and sets up a shooting platform by the window. Meanwhile, Nina overhears Phil reporting her arrival to someone. She goes to his house, but the man hides behind blinds. Then his radio comes to life reporting that they are 1 minute away, and Nina recognizes the voice. She realizes that the bandits are heading to the town, and upon seeing a neighboring girl on the road, she hides her in a house. She grabs a rifle and prepares to confront the players. The gang stops their cars right under the window of the house where Betsy is positioned, and the sentry also aims at them. Nina opens fire immediately, supported by Betsy, taking down half of the gang. At that moment, the girl escapes from the house, and while Mark tries to catch her, one of the bandits attacks him. Nina throws a homemade grenade at the cars, and Mark kills his attacker with the bandit's own horn. Phil watches in horror as Betsy gets wounded, and there Nina sees the speeding Plowers car, which can easily sweep away anyone in its path. She rushes to the winch and tightens the tripwire, which the armored car brushes aside. But then, the explosives go off and the car flips over. Among the attackers, only one female bandit remains who heads into the house where the wounded Betsy is. At that moment, handing Mark a ring before succumbing to a bullet fired by the Bandit Queen. The Bandit Queen prepares to shoot Mark, but she receives a bullet from Nina, while Mark recovers from the transformation of his wife. She confronts Phil and finds bloody footprints of a child and a murdered man on the table. Nina finds a familiar box, takes it and goes home, encountering a neighboring girl with bloody hands on the street. Nina hands the box to her husband, and he finds the long-desired pistol of her father inside. Then he places the lost ring back on her finger. The couple leaves the town in search of a better place while the radio reports about a family that has destroyed a bunch of bandits. So the villains need to rethink their actions.
Hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to have a cool-ass day.